Got another under the books, in the books is where we have another week of basketball. And some of you guys might be excited over this guy behind me, Mr. Jordan Addison, but it's a good week for the rookies. Jordan Addison, good game. We saw JSN finally have a good game. Some things working out for our guys, some things working out for the portfolios. But you guys know I'm going to have to take my lumps today as well because Christian Watson, oh boy, Christian Watson killing me no matter what side it is. But this is your best ball review show as we head into week 8. So let's talk about it all. Going to talk about the top players, going to review my portfolio on Underdog, on DraftKings, on Drafters. And I have to say, on 2 of those sites, I've got good news. On one of those sites, I didn't even look before the show at what my advanced rate is because I don't feel great about it. But we persevere, of course, here on Splash Play, as always. Let's talk about it. Let's review the top players. And let me give you guys, I guess, I should open these shows like a little bit of a monologue / soliloquy about where we are in the season. Obviously, now we're about at the halfway point of the year, halfway point of your best ball lineups. A little bit less than that, but still feels like that. We now know some better things about teams. And even then, still, last night, Monday Night Football, an absolute game there where the Niners just could not get it going. Fed Brandon Ayuk early, then could not keep it going past the first half. Lots of things that have happened so far in the season where we have the most data. We know the most things we know at any point of the year, but you've now seen things that I think are mostly out of left field, like that Niners game, another loss for them, 2 in a row where it's just games that they should have won. There's still some volatility to be had. So that's sort of the main thing I think that's tough to parse out, where I really think at this point of the year, you rely the most on the data you have, especially data that's not everywhere. So like the stuff I talk about from Sports Info Solutions, a lot of that data people haven't fully realized yet. They don't know what the weak spots are in defense. They just kind of see the holistic DVP kind of numbers. So I really do believe this time of year is when you use the data to your advantage the most. But that said, the data is still a fungible thing, still a variable thing, still something that is going to be a very, very tough part to work around. Shout out to our pal Steven Levitz, who was just with me on Stochastic. I am hopping straight from NBA to the world of NFL, as always. We do here on Splash Play, of course, Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. But let's talk about the top players. You can see on the screen, as always, my charts from Fantasy Pros to show who is ranked number 1. And once again, number 1 on the year, Josh Allen, a guy who I can tell you right now is driving my Drafters team, fitting the thesis that we talked about on Drafters of the 17-week kind of season where you are playing for a prize pool there without playoffs. Elite QBs make a little more sense. Josh Allen is doing that. 23.3 points per game for him overall. Most points overall in terms of total points. Things looking pretty good. Spags puts the fun in fungible. Thank you. That's all I've ever asked, is to put the word fun in things in general. Not funding. That's the one I don't put the word fun in at all. Jalen Hurts, number 2. So elite QBs paying off. Again, it's all relative, though, to the week-to-week for best ball, where I think you should feel good about your Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts shares, especially if you're competing for that 14-week regular season prize pool on a DraftKings or the 17-week regular season prize pool on a Drafters. Week-to-week upside, though, really not seeing guys like Allen and Hurts separate week-to-week, where Jalen Hurts has not had a game over 30. Josh Allen, 1 game over 30, along with a couple under 15. So I think that's sort of a thing that really fits the thesis of what we talked about in the offseason about elite QBs, where these guys are great plays over the course of a season. That's why they do get drafted so highly. That said, when it comes to game-to-game upside, you could see a Josh Allen lose to my beloved Anthony Richardson, rest in peace. You could see a Josh Allen even lose to a Jordan Love some weeks. Kenny Pickett, maybe less so. But point being, Josh Allen can lose to a lot of guys. Jalen Hurts can lose to a lot of guys. I wouldn't take them being numbers 1 and 2 as like, oh, if I have these guys, I'm a sure bet to win it all in Best Ball Mania. But I do think you have to feel pretty good about your outlay, particularly, again, competing for those regular season prizes. Tyreek Hill at number 3. Tyreek Hill, I got to tell you, at least for my underdog portfolio, he is the guy who is completely driving everything that I'm doing successfully right now. I had to look at my underdog portfolio to make sure I still have any teams advancing. But Tyreek Hill is the one guy every single week you're putting up outlier performances. You know he's got that 40-point-ish ceiling. He's giving you over 20 every week. He's basically doing what I talked about for Justin Jefferson. Jefferson, unfortunately, out on the IR for the next few weeks, despite what some SEO articles might say with this Justin Jefferson going to play. He is, in fact, out for a couple more weeks because he has to be due to IR. So I think for Tyreek Hill, he's given me what I thought I'd get from Jefferson, but a little more upside, a little more spike week potential for sure for this Dolphins offense. And even our boy Mike McDaniel, I should have pulled up the clip. Mike McDaniel talking about splash plays on the game on Sunday Night Football. So he's a fan of the show. I'm a fan of him, and I'm a fan of Tyreek Hill, besides the parenting parts of it, that less so. Christian McCaffrey comes in with another 20-point game. Again, I really think for Christian McCaffrey, he's just steadily giving you that production. He's sort of the running back version of what we talked about with Justin Jefferson, where just getting a guy that's going to give you 20 points every week is the main thing. Obviously, when he gives you a 45-point week like that, even better. But you have the 2 down weeks under 13. You have his 20-point week coming back. He's just solid. He's not going to kill you. That said, he was outscored by a lot of guys this week. Gus Edwards outscored Christian McCaffrey. So our pal Big Lenny, if he comes to the chat trying to say that Christian McCaffrey took a load on me or whatever, dumped the load on me, I forget the exact phrasing that our pal Big Lenny uses. I don't think Christian McCaffrey is actually doing that. I don't think he's providing enough separation at his position to make you feel like he was fully worth that number 1 pick. But I think for Christian McCaffrey, just hard to ignore his spot on your teams. He's propping up a lot of stuff. But I think as the season goes on, again, he's really banged up. And I think you watched that game yesterday, under 3 carries per rush attempt, had the long catch for a touchdown. That looked good. But I think he's hurting himself with what he's doing right now. This is not a guy that should continue to get 25-plus touches, especially coming off of another injury. But that's what they're doing right now. And the Niners seem like they need it more than we would have expected. So don't think that role goes away from McCaffrey. It definitely didn't last night where he's playing every single snap. But I still worry about him over the course of his season, the history of injuries, all of that. The usage is going to rack up, and I think it could rack up at the most inconvenient time for people that did invest heavily in Christian McCaffrey. Patrick Mahomes at number 5, kind of a surprise to see him here, but 135-point game will do that. Takes a big leap upwards in the overall rankings. McCaffrey, I think I would rather have the Mahomes for sure, but Mahomes, I think a player where I don't view him as an Allen and Hurts. The lack of rushing upside sort of makes it hard to expect a big upside day in terms of the slate-breaking potential, the 45-point games that can occur. But Mahomes gets there with 35 points in a game where he just threw lots of Kelsey, threw lots of Rashee Rice. I have no issue with Mahomes. I just think out of the elite QBs especially, he's the weakest of the 3 and the one that's most likely to get beaten by other guys amongst, just week to week overall. Lamar coming on strong, massive day for him against Detroit. He's certainly looking good, a player that does have the natural stack partners that could pay off. And with Andrews, the more that Andrews continues to play well, better leverage you're going to get on Travis Kelce and all of that. So I think Lamar certainly deserving of his spot and a guy that I think not being fully priced an elite QB probably gives him a little more fungibility. And the main thing for Lamar that you got to be looking forward to now, if you are cruising right now along with Lamar stacks, if you have those Miami-Baltimore games, again, that's week 17, Miami-Baltimore. I don't know how Baltimore doesn't score a lot of points in that game. Miami might have a tougher time like the Lions did, but still, Miami can get points on anybody. I think that week 17 game is the one where that doesn't look any bit worse, doesn't look any bit less good than it looked in the preseason. But I think it might look better for Lamar and whatever stacks he has on his side. And Zay Flowers as well. The other guy keeps getting there. Tua at number 7, Raheem Mostert coming down. Tough game for him against Philly, under 6 points. Obviously, he needs to get his big games in now before Achane comes off of IR. But Mostert carrying your teams. If you did have a lot of Mostert carrying you, I think you probably saw a little bit of that slide back. That is the cause for concern when you have a guy who goes late, who's been a tremendous outlier. If he doesn't have those great games over and over again, he's going to fall out of the top 10, going to fall to the top 20 potentially. Mostert starting that decline now. Kirk Cousins hanging on, Jared Goff hanging on. Nothing too crazy here. A lot of QBs. And Mostert still being top 10. I mean, he paid whatever dividends for wherever you draft him at this point. It's just the concern would be if he's really carrying your teams, I just don't think Mostert can hold up forever doing that. Just because of the situation, having Jeff Wilson back in, Achane due to come back in, all that's going to be pretty tough. Guys on the outside looking in, Stephon Diggs, Travis Etienne, got to give him kudos, but let's go to the other positions and look at it. Any weird top 10 QBs? Brock Purdy at number 9, Russell Wilson at number 10. That is one where I think this kind of speaks to QB being a bit of a disappointment on the year overall, where Russell Wilson always had to do was just play every game and have one vague outlier game in week 2, 26.9 fantasy points in that one. Russell Wilson teams, I would think if they have Cortland Sutton, probably looking a little bit better in advance rate than you would have expected. So Russell Wilson, I don't know that I have the faith here. 2 straight games under 15 points, but he's a top 10 QB right now. So hard to begrudge him that, though he is going to get some guys here. Like I think Jordan Love would pass him if he hadn't had the bye week. Jordan Love playing like shit, but fantasy-wise playing pretty well. Sam Howell, up and down, still playing good enough to make it in. Fields would be ahead of him. So Russ just kind of here, sheerly out of the inertia. The availability of playing every game is what is keeping Russ there. Desmond Ridder moving up a little bit. Nothing too shocking here, I think, at QB. Biggest disappointment has to be Joe Burrow. Obviously, the bye week is making this look worse. Joe Burrow at QB 26 is not going to fill you with a lot of confidence. Jimmy Garoppolo, another guy who's, I don't know, like going the wrong way for sure. Another injury. Definitely needs to feed Devontae Adams more to keep that whole situation at bay. But nobody down here, I think, is going to be too much of a shocker. Deshaun Watson, I guess we have to highlight. Is Deshaun Watson officially the biggest bust at QB? I think that you might be able to make that case. And it's crazy because he does have 2 games over 21 fantasy points, but you throw in the injury, you throw in the bye, you throw in the injury, you throw in whatever this game was this past weekend where colossal mistake by him, evades pressure in the pocket, ends up throwing a pick anyway. Deshaun, to me, a guy that is absolutely killing some portfolios. And other guys, Tyson Bagent, just a dude. PJ Walker, just a dude. Crazy that Cleveland keeps winning with their QB doing this, but that's how that goes. Running backs, any surprise running backs here? Top 10, Christian McCaffrey, Raheem Mostert, Travis Etienne. Now we got to make sure this is half-point scoring, of course, the underdog format du jour. McCaffrey, Mostert, Etienne at RB3, pretty big shocker. Though again, I do think this speaks a little bit more to the running back position because you have Kyren Williams, who missed the game, going to be out for at least 4 weeks on IR. Kyren Williams has been a big part of what's been helping my teams out. So I want to see this guy get back out there, but he misses 1 game, and that's what allows Etienne to get ahead of him. I think Etienne, to me, solid player. The floor here, you could see 3 straight games over 21 points. I think he's perfectly fine. He's the one running back, as we talked about, who's actually consolidated his backfield, took shares away from Tank Bigsby, took shares away from Dearness Johnson, from JaMychal Hasty, who's been hurt. All those guys are now firmly behind Travis Etienne. So I think his outlay looks pretty good. I don't know that I expect him to hold on to the RB3 throne throughout the rest of the year, but he looks like probably the best non-first round, top 5 round running backs, I would think. So kudos to all the ATN drafters. I know he is driving my best team right now in the Golden. That, of course, the single entry winner take all there. We'll review in a moment. Can't wait. Zach Moss here at number 5, hanging in despite a dud game. We did see Jonathan Taylor seize more of that backfield, as we've talked about, was going to be upcoming for the Colts. Zach Moss, whatever you've gotten out of him with where you drafted him, you got to be happy with it. Still good contingent value for Jonathan Taylor. Still a guy that can apparently break a 50 to 70-yard touchdown at times. Zach Moss, more explosive than most running backs in football, which is an absolute shocker. But don't expect him to hold on to the top 10 spot unless there's an injury to Jonathan Taylor. He's a perfectly fine contingent value back, but I think you've now gotten his biggest weeks, and you're just got to be ready to have somebody else step up as Zach Moss continues to put up, sub 10-point games moving forward. Kenneth Walker, number 6, the dud of the week, Kenneth Walker, but he's hanging in here. I think I'd still prefer to have him over Travis Etienne over the course of the season. At this point, Walker still comes to the risk that, that was a dud game by him. No Charbonnet out there. I do wonder if that had been the kind of game where maybe Charbonnet could have gotten in the mix a little bit more because Walker wasn't that effective, but a lot of it just didn't work out. Didn't get the goal line work he normally gets, where he's getting about 5 red zone touches a game. Didn't hit that number last week, and also just didn't break the big plays at any point. I think we kind of saw the worst parts of Kenneth Walker this past week, and obviously being at 50% ownership in DFS tournaments, pretty brutal. But Walker, if you drafted him, I think you have to feel pretty good about it. But the fact you've only gotten this one spike week, like this to me was the week where you get a 30-point game out of him. Not getting one here, I think, is kind of a bummer for Walker's outlook if you are somebody that's heavily invested in him. De'Von Achane has played 4 games, and despite that, he's still number 7 overall at running back. So tremendous testament to how much having this one 49-point game will help him out. I need Achane back out there. I'm sure a lot of you guys out there do as well. Certainly don't expect him to be a worse play when he gets back out there. But I think for him, holding it at number 7 is actually pretty good for a lot of teams out there, especially the 0 RB portfolio. So Achane hanging in, probably going to fall off at some point. I would think next week here, because he's only 4 points ahead of Swift, only 5 points ahead of Pacheco. Achane probably falls out of the top 10 next week, but for that to be the case, for him to not fall out of the top 10 after 3 weeks on IR, I think is pretty impressive. So Achane, probably, again, one of the steals of the draft. Hopefully he gets back out there in his full go once again. Shouts to the chat. Shout out our guy Mark joining in here. Appreciate all you guys watching live. I know the best ball show, this review show, is probably the most esoteric thing, especially as we get into week 7. People are starting to realize their team's dying. So I appreciate all you guys being here as always, but we're going to keep running the process here on Splash Play as we do. And hopefully there'll be a nice story to tell at the end of it when I win on DraftKings and come nowhere close on Underdog. DeAndre Swift at number 8, Isaiah Pacheco at number 9, Brian Robinson number 10. Again, 0 RB portfolio. All these guys in the RB deadish zone, perhaps. I guess that would be a little bit late for the dead zone, but still, guys that were not drafted, not treated with any respect. These guys are now carrying pretty heavily top 10 places for themselves and only going to move up, it seems like, in the coming weeks. So for these guys, I think you can see the picture here of a 0 RB portfolio. Once again, Kyren Williams, Raheem Mostert. These are all guys you get drafted together. Swift, Pacheco, Robinson. All these guys are really, I think, what will drive these teams that did go 0 RB this year. Probably not mine, I think, on Underdog. But in general, like there's a lot of ways for zero RB teams to hit. And that is the one thing I would say will be the underlying theme of the year moving forward, where unless you start seeing games pile up with outlier games for Saquon, outlier games for Tony Pollard, outlier games for Eckler, for Christian McCaffrey, I think a zero RB team is going to be very low owned and have a lot of guys that have potential big games as well, while also having been good throughout the entire season. So in this spot for me, I think that really do believe that a zero RB team can be one that wins it this year. And I hope it's one of mine, but I do think that somebody out there might have gotten the nuts and we don't even realize it yet. David Montgomery hanging in despite his injuries. Derrick Henry just down this year. Bye week, of course, not helping either. He'll probably get back to the top 10. It's a lot of busts down here. Henry, Josh Jacobs, awful game for Josh Jacobs. Did get there as chalk, but had one of the worst games of the year. That entire Raiders offense, a really weird situation for the Raiders where I don't know if you guys actually watched that game for me because of how much I was talking about Devontae Adams. I wanted to see it firsthand. So the first drive, they just peppered Devontae Adams with targets. Second drive, they try to pepper Devontae Adams with targets. Then at a certain point, it feels like they go, all right, Devontae, you saw what happens when we try to give you targets. Like you're not getting there all the way. Then they do a drive where they just feed Jacoby Myers targets. It was a very weird situation in that Raiders game where it just feels like warring political factions going head to head with each other. And the result is that Josh Jacobs just getting fucked. Like Josh Jacobs obviously didn't do a whole lot for himself. The O-line, not as good as last year. That's a big part of what drove Josh Jacobs' success last year, was that his O-line was technically the best in football in terms of adjusted line yards. This year, that's not the case, and Josh Jacobs is not as efficient, not as shifty either, avoiding about half the tackles that he did at a rate last year. So for Josh Jacobs, I would really worry about this one, especially as the Raiders, maybe move closer to a potential tanking team. This is one with Jacobs that I would be very worried about with the draft capital he took him at, and certainly a player in redraft. Like if you're trading him right now, you'd be trading him at a nut low. But I think so. You need him to have a spike week. If he does have a spike week anytime soon, I would try to get rid of Jacobs before a trade deadline if you can. DFS teams were loaded with Adams and Amari Cooper. I didn't do well. Yeah, it's tough, man. I liked Amari Cooper as well. I do think that Amari Cooper is going to have better days, but when it is that sort of weird situation with it felt like maybe Deshaun Watson shouldn't have played in that game. PJ Walker also just not a starting level QB. Like, it bums me out. Love the XFL. I loved what he and what the fuck was that guy's name? Was it Cam Robinson did in the XFL that one year? Lots of good things that I think that PJ Walker can do, at least as a backup, but he's not a good fantasy QB. He's not going to create that value. So I agree. Like, I love Cooper. I think he's a very good player. I think that he and Adams both kind of caught in bad situations. Though at least for Cooper, the Browns keep winning. So the motivation is there for them to get better. At a certain point, I guess you hope that Deshaun Watson gets back to normalcy, but it is not fucking good. Kamara here, top 20, despite the fact that he didn't play the first 3 games. Hard to imagine Kamara really going backwards if they're not going to give Kendre Miller touches. If they're going to feed Jamal Williams, Alvin Kamara is going to look better than that every time. The receiving role for Kamara is like impossible. It's just a role that shouldn't exist. It's not efficient. It's not good. He's not efficient. He's not good, but he's just getting so much volume that he's hard to ignore. Of course, we'll do the Spags rankings review tomorrow, and I think Alvin Kamara will once again be a top-ranked guy just because of the role, not because of what he's doing. He's certainly not doing anything above average, but he is doing enough in terms of the usage and the opportunity that he's getting. Biggest disappointments in this range, Ramondre, Saquon Barkley. Thought that was one of the better Saquon spots we had, and a better Saquon spot results in 17 points. So obviously Darren Waller having an outlier game there probably didn't help out Saquon too much. But Saquon, to me, I think when you have these chances, you need him to collect on every 20 to 25 point game that he can. Him not even getting 20 in that one, I think, cause for concern for Saquon amidst many causes for concern for the Giants. They did finally, I guess, win one, so kudos to them. Joe Mixon, bye for him. He stinks, just pure volume. Gus Edwards, the one hope that I have for my teams that don't have J.K. Dobbins is Gus Edwards being the guy that got there. Dobbins, I think, would have been a much better play this year, but Edwards showing a 20 fantasy point ceiling, another guy you could have gotten for free. You basically went undrafted in some drafts. So I think that Edwards looking pretty solid, and it shows, I think, Rachaad White, just how worthless the role is for Tampa Bay, where he's played, had one bye week game, hasn't broken 20 points yet. He's still RB 25 on the year just by being out there, just by getting enough. And I think this is why, Algier looking pretty good, relative to his draft capital, just because of the fact that he's able to give you similar performances to Rachaad White with more spike weeks. I think that's something for Rachaad White that's just a tough reflection. Not the best situation for him, not the best run game overall. The pass game, he's not getting enough checkdowns from Baker, even though he does look pretty good. Had a fun hurdle in that game as well for Tampa Bay. But Rachaad White, just not that dude, not that special. I think that's pretty tough for him. Jaleel McLaughlin being top 30 is pretty crazy. Jaleel McLaughlin ahead of Jalen Warren. That's That's a bummer for Jalen Warren. Jalen Warren, tough bags on Jalen Warren. Gus, Bus, and Foreman doing great things for my basketball teams. Yeah, Foreman, that was a great game by Foreman. I really think this is one for me where Roshan, concussion being out 2 weeks, I'm really worried about Roshan. When you are out an extended period of time, if you are a older DFS player, you can remember Javid Best, or that was his name, right? Javid Best, who had the concussions, then just didn't play anymore at a certain point. Roshan, I don't think it's quite that bad. He's a bigger dude. Best was not a big dude. But still somebody with Roshan where you don't see him get out there after 1 week with being on concussion protocol. I'm worried about that. I'm also worried that Foreman being good this past week might cost Roshan that role or the opportunity he could get while Khalil Herbert's on IR. So that's something with Roshan where we might have missed the window on Roshan for now. But I think that Roshan would have had that game that Foreman had. And kudos to the Foreman drafters. I have Foreman as well. So not to be mad about it, but I want to see Roshan get that role and make it count. Yeah, Herbert down here. Nobody too good. Someone in my league dropped Algier, and I didn't drop Osborne for him. Whoops. That's tough. I mean, with Algier, this is a weird week. If you're a Bijan owner or Bijan manager, I guess the correct phrasing we're supposed to use, like him being sick and then him playing, like I certainly don't be one of those people that goes on Twitter and goes, it's a prop bet conspiracy. The kind of like there was a guy who's got like 180,000 Twitter followers who was talking about this, like for being a sports betting guy. And he was saying, oh man, like the NFL and the sports books are conspiring together to make us lose on Bijan Robinson props. Like, don't be that person on social media ever. I beg of you guys. Obviously, I'm biased here. You guys all know you can go to my website probably and go see all the data you need to see for free, making some improvements there on the back end that are making it look even better. So check it out, probably.com. Of course, you can sort through, find the top probabilities from all the sports books around the world that are the winningest. And we do is evaluate live sportsbook opportunities off of that. But basically, like, fucking people who are supposed to know better still think that Bijan Robinson thing is like a conspiracy. And it's just you're running bad. Like, it's just going to happen sometimes. Situations break in ways that you don't want them to see. It's never something you want, obviously, if you're a Bijan manager. But I do think for Bijan, it's just clearly he got sick. Clearly they didn't know what was going on. I don't think they did the processes and protocols correctly. But for Bijan, he'll have better days. It's just the issue is the same for Bijan. Is that they trust Tyler Algier in the red zone. Is that they trust Tyler Algier in high leverage spots. And Bijan now has to have outlier performances outside of that mechanism. And that's tough to happen with Ritter being what he is, this offense being what it is. So I think that's sort of the main thing for Robinson is that it's not a conspiracy that he's having a bad year. It's just that the usage is not where you need it to be, where you have guys in the NFL who are regularly getting 5 red zone touches a game. If Bijan's getting 1, like it's not going to do it for you. All right. Let's see. Look at the big brain on Roshan. the big swollen brain with blood pouring out of his eardrums. Yes, poor Roshan. I really would like him. Where is he ranked right now? Cannot be good. We had that one great week 1. Just a real glimmer here. 14.5 Roshan RB 52, just ahead of Amari DiMercado, Cam Akers, Jordan Mason. This is rookies. Like, I can't panic about this yet because this is what happened. You know, Tyler Algier started slow last year, was inactive for a game or 2 in the beginning of the year and still got there. Not going to panic about Roshan yet, but I would like his brain to be healthy. I would like him to feel good and happy and spry, all those things. Said LA Mitchell's never going to go up unless CMC gets injured enough to be inactive. Yeah, and Mitchell, too, when he is out there, he doesn't have the same juice he had last year. He was so efficient per touch. This year, he's just he had 1 carry yesterday and just got stopped at fucking -1 yards. He's not the same player. I think Jordan Mason, to me, looks a little better eyeball test-wise this year, and I think might look better data-wise as well. So I still think, and I'm not doing this to jinx anybody, still think that CMC does go out at some point just because it's hard to keep this usage up with the injury history, his age and all of that, and keep not getting hurt. And I think if that's the case, then Mitchell's going to get 1 more shot to be useful. For right now, though, Mitchell is just pure contingent value, and it's one of those things where I don't know. I don't know how you predict that he wasn't going to be just pure contingent value because he had 10 touches a game last year. But this year, another year in the system, I don't know what the learning takeaway is other than to not believe in Eli Mitchell moving forward. Wide receivers in half-point PPR. Tyreek, number 1. Stephon Diggs, number 2. So it's kind of interesting to note here. Did have more running backs instead of wide receivers in the top 10 on the year scoring, but still think wide receivers are driving a lot of the value in my portfolio. Obviously, as a guy that does heavy up on receivers. We get Tyreek, Diggs, A.J. Brown, Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua has scored more points for me, I've noticed, in my golden team than a lot of receivers who were drafted ahead of him. So Puka is a big part, big hanging thread for this season overall, where if you have Puka, your team's going to look a lot better. What Puka does in week 17, We'll find out. But you got to think that Puka is going to be one of the guys that drives advance rate really well because he's performing like he's a second or third round pick. And honestly, better than a lot of them. I could tell you, he's clearing Christian Watson. He's clearing all these guys, clearing Debo, clearing a lot of dudes in that range that were picks that look pretty good. So for Puka, he's going to have weeks like this one. He's going to have this 5-point week, in games where Cooper Kupp actually does put it down, does have the ceiling efforts. But if you have, a Rams double, especially a Rams double without Stafford, I think Puka is a really solid player to have the rest of the year in terms of just alternating spike week kind of things. The lesson, don't trust Shanahan, McVay, Belichick. Yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, with Belichick, with Ramondre, like I got that one right. Like I didn't get much Ramondre. I'm not trying to say that to dunk on anybody here. I know we had a lot of Ramondre fans in the Splash Play family, of course. For me, I just don't think there's any coach where it's every coach. Like it's every coach you're worried about. It's Arthur Smith not giving Bijan red zone work. It's I don't know. What are the other best analogies? It's all the timeshares out there. It's like Javonte Williams at this point, still getting 10 to 15 touches. You probably should give those touches to Jaleel McLaughlin at this point. Not that he's a guy that any of us are financially motivated by to any real measure, but like coaches just do that shit. So I think that's sort of the main thing. Coaches are really going to trust the top guy unless the top guy is dust. And that's the situation for all these things. I think Christian McCaffrey, not dust. So he just keeps getting the work. Keenan Allen at number 6, DJ Moore at number 5. These guys solid. We had 1 week without Adam Thielen. I am really deeply hoping that this week off on a bye for Carolina has made them realize we should just stop throwing the ball to Adam Thielen so much when we have all these young guys. Like give Mingo half those targets. I don't think Mingo's good, but he at least can do what Adam Thielen does. I think that's where I would push towards. I would really push towards giving Terrace Marshall more work. That one I am financially biased towards. Point being, I don't think that Thielen holds here, but it could also go the other way, and we could see Adam Thielen be the elevated version of Cooper Kupp in a Rams-inspired offense of the new OC Thomas Brown. So we'll see how this goes, but I think that this week for Adam Thielen, it's going to be a fluid week because a new OC coming in can really mean that things change new OC getting the play calls rather, could be a really big change in how they approach things. And if this guy just forces it downfield any bit more, that is not going to benefit Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen's been feasting on those little cheap slant routes with nobody around him, has had a few deep plays, but not enough to really stand out in a meaningful way. I think if they move this offense in any sort of way that isn't just check down bullshit, it's going to be bad for Adam Thielen. Sirianni wearing a Gainwell shirt. Yes, that's another good one. Where DeAndre Swift still top 10 on the year, so you can't be mad about it. But Kenneth Gainwell just being involved enough. And then also, fuck Sirianni too for not playing Rashad Penny is how I feel about that. Rashad Penny could be a goal line back. It's just unfair. Keep trotting Boston Scott out there, Philly fucks. Thielen running so good, getting in the box. It's true. He's due for touchdown regression. I think he's due for general usage regression. There's a lot of things for Thielen here, right? I can't be mad at any of you guys who got him on your teams. Like, more power to you for ignoring the hive mind that is the best ball industry, myself included, that thought he was dust and didn't want to play him. I think there is something to learn from that. But I just can't see us continuing to be in this world of him putting up 22, 23, 26, and half point PPR. Maybe full point PPR, he can hang in a little bit more. But half point, I just don't think he finishes top 10. Jamar Chase at number 8, bye week for him. Higgins being back, I think not great. We saw how bad Burrow has been on the year. Do you think that Burrow showed some signs of life when the last games before the bye? So I think Burrow, a week off, hopefully he'll get better. But Jamar Chase, hard to expect him to have this 45 fantasy point ceiling with T. Higgins out there, either being inefficient with his touches or being efficient with his touches. T. Higgins being efficient is probably worse for Jamar Chase overall. And Higgins is going to be better at some point. Like, Higgins is not suddenly just shit heading into a contract year. So I think we're going to see Jamar Chase kind of hover around here. I don't expect him to make the big leap upwards unless we see some more injuries coming. I think our next outcome from Marshall is a trade to a team with a competent offense. I guess, I mean, I don't know, like, trading for a guy mid-season, I just don't expect there to be that much opportunity for him. I still think the best thing would be just him taking over the DJ Chark role, because that was where he had a lot of success last year. Sam Darnold was just getting downfield and getting some targets. But I like Terrace Marshall a lot, and I hope that he's one of those guys where they figure out, coming off the bye, like, why are we not using this guy more? But he had the entire preseason to prove that too and didn't quite do that. It was also banged up, so I think that probably hurt his outlay a little bit. It's okay, Nick. I respect you. You're a Panthers expert. You get some clout just because of that. And also, as a Panthers expert, I don't expect you to spell correctly. So that's how that goes. No offense to our great friends in Carolina, of course. Amon-Ra St. Brown at number 9. Again, looks pretty good for him with him missing a game to be top 10. Amon-Ra, again, not going to be wide receiver 1 like I thought he had an outside shot of being. So I think for Amon-Ra, I think this is a pretty good spot for him to be in. Certainly going to have some upside games. The defensive vulnerabilities that Detroit showed, probably a good thing for Amon-Ra moving forward. So, want to see that explosive ceiling. I don't know if he has it in him quite as much this year. Did have over 30 fantasy points in this one game in full point PPR. But I think that's sort of the one thing you nickel and dime Amon-Ra for is in this offense is how many ways they have to go. He probably doesn't have, a 40-point ceiling in him with any regularity. If that does happen, you're probably seeing it once this year. So that's the biggest flaw for him. Devontae Adams, we are now 4 straight weeks under 12 fantasy points. This was the get right spot for him this past week. I will still play him because I do believe the talent is there. And clearly the bitching about his role is there. Got 12 targets again this past week. So the opportunity is there for him. It's just this Raiders offense cannot get in the ball where it needs to get. He also had the egregious drop on a touchdown catch in that game against the Bears as well. So I think things can look a little better for Devontae, but it's hard to imagine him getting to this 35.5 again with how things are running right now with the QB player for the Raiders being bad, Devontae being not himself. I don't think he just looks grumpy. It's not using the fantasy football analysis you're coming to Splash Play for, but he just looks like a grumpy little bitch out there every time. And he's a large man, so I don't want to call him a little bitch too much, but he just doesn't look like he wants to be there, and it's tough. And D. Owen saying Marshall to the Chiefs. I don't think the Chiefs are trading. I guess maybe they can make a trade with Justin Ross and his criminal stuff, but they got Hardman. I feel like that's their move at this point. The Chiefs are just a little too complacent, not making moves, I think. Still think that an Adams move would be nice, but the Raiders said actively they're not trading him. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. It could just mean that they want more aggressive orders if they are going to trade him, or more aggressive offers, rather, if they're going to trade him. But Adams. That's exactly why we come to Splash Play. Okay, if you guys are coming here for me to call players grumpy, then I respect that. I think Devontae Adams is a grumpy grump, and I don't like it. He's a grumpy monkey for all the parents out there that have read that book. Jefferson, number 11, hanging in this tight. I mean, honestly, you have to be pleased with Jefferson as a number 1 overall pick. If he's still hovering around the top 10 while missing half of a game, I guess more than half of a game, and then 2 more on top of it. So Jefferson looking good. Jordan Addison, though, the man of the thumbnail, he's the one we have to hit on. Again, I talk about Jordan Addison a lot because at USC last year, he was not the guy that we thought we were getting from Pittsburgh as a transfer. He just wasn't getting as many deep looks, wasn't taking enough advantage of it. Maybe the LA parts of it, the fame parts of it, the being a Biletnikoff winner guy, maybe that got to his head. I don't know. But you watched that guy yesterday, and he's running real routes. He's taking real hits, putting up that many points, putting up 27.8 half-point PPR points when he went out of the game with a toe injury, or I guess a cramp was what they said, but looked weird. Was a weird injury that knocked him out for a little bit there. But Addison, he played like Justin Jefferson yesterday. So I think Addison, to me, I drafted more Quentin Johnson this year. I drafted more JSN than Addison. I don't feel great about it. A lot of that was because people would always snag Addison earlier than the ADP window would have allowed. But I think if you have Addison right now, at least until Jefferson gets back out there, I think Addison feels like a really strong player right now. And I'm glad to see him and JSN showing signs of life. Like that's sort of the main thing. But yeah, I think that's with Addison, man, he's got a little more talent, a little more juice than it seems. He's not fast, he's not a game breaker, but he just finds a way to get into those holes and zones. And I think that's something that's going to bode well for him the rest of his career. So for Addison, the big thing holding him back is he just needs to be ahead of KJ Osborne when Jefferson gets back in the mix. And hopefully that'll happen for him because Osborne showing very little, showing why he is just kind of a number 3 receiver guy. I think Brandon Powell's got more juice than Osborne. I think Jordan Addison clearly has more juice than Osborne. They should recognize that at some point, but we'll see. Yeah, Osborne looked dusty. Yesterday made clicking on Addison feel good finally. I mean, look, he's given you good games, or at least, passable games. I think he's looked a little better on DraftKings, but 14s, 15, this is not a bad floor. Obviously, the zero is not going to help you out very much, but him being a better and best ball kind of guy who's now showing potential to be a wide receiver 1, I think this is a pretty good run out for Addison. I have a lot more worries about Quentin Johnston. Just his ability to put up one good game because of the fact that Josh Palmer is playing really well. Palmer now I think has to get hurt for Quentin Johnson to get there. For Addison, when Jefferson's back out there, I don't expect him to have many of these 28-point games, but he deserves a real role after that game last night and just how he's played in general. He probably deserved more of a role heading into last night anyway. So for Addison, I think he's a really strong play and one that he's going to have some down weeks, absolutely, but I wouldn't chase him in a main slate next week is the best way to put that. But I think for best ball, he's in the hunt and now he probably has earned himself a better role for when Jefferson comes back in. And that's all you can ask for. And the Vikings too, winning another game. They were a team that I think made some amount of sense to tank. They were talking potentially about trading Kirk Cousins before Kirk said he wouldn't waive his no trade clause. So now it's like they have a shot to win the North. They're probably not going to be as good as the Lions, but could be number 2 in that division, could make the wild card. So I think they're going to go all in and try to keep playing this year, which is a good outcome for Jefferson owners, for Addison owners, for everybody who's invested in the Vikings at all. I guess the one guy you feel bad about if you're a Vikings backer at all, Madison. Madison just felt like he just was not as good as Cam Akers last night. And the role was starting to get a little bit worse for him too, but that's probably just more of a pure hot hand backfield. And frankly, a backfield with Madison and Akers where neither is probably ever going to be a hot hand. I guess Cam can get there a little bit, but not too likely. Mini versus Green Bay Tank Off Bowl this week. Yeah. And in week 17. Yeah, Green Bay, their defense is just good enough and their offense is not good at all. And Minnesota's defense showing some signs of life, obviously, yesterday as well. Christian Watson, the one thing that's good news about Christian Watson, had a knee injury on Sunday. Apparently nothing bad in the scans, so he'll be okay to go, if not this week, in the future. But Christian Watson, man, the breakouts for him, I am worried about them coming. And I don't think it's his fault. I think it's all Jordan Love and the line not able to keep Jordan Love clean. And Jordan Love, as we've talked about, we saw the signs early on of him being bad under pressure. Then it really reared its ugly head against Detroit. And now every week we are seeing Jordan Love does not even be able to get the ball out of the pocket in a meaningful way downfield. Jordan Love is killing that team, and it bums me out because I think there's a world where he could have run better. But QB is such a time and place and confidence job. And I think right now, Jordan Love, I don't sense is the most confidence in the world, unfortunately. No buys this week. That's a good point. Yeah, that is a weird thing. Week 8, no buys. So everybody will be ready to go. So if your team plays like shit this week, no excuses. All of your guys played. We all know that. Jacoby Myers, outlier for sure. Mike Evans, good. Michael Pittman hanging in here. Thank God for Michael Pittman propping up some of my teams. Christian Kirk, fine. Brandon Ayuk, just a dud game by him this past week. Really think this should have been an explosion spot for Ayuk. I don't know if I never blame the receivers, which might be on me. Really felt like Ayuk had more than enough room to get some passes there, but Brock Purdy wasn't even looking at his side of the field a lot. Just felt like they kind of decided, all right, Ayuk killed them early. The Vikings, I think, trying to bracket him a little bit more, and they just didn't look his way. Not my favorite for Ayuk because he has historically been a better player when Debo is out. But bummer for me yesterday, fucking killed me on that slate because I basically forced Ayuk into almost every lineup besides a few in the mini-max. So if you followed the thumbnail yesterday, I apologize. Ayuk killed me too, so have no fear about that. Week 12 also has no buys. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Do you think JJ will be shut down for the year? No, I don't think so. I think the Vikings have now won enough games where you get Jefferson back out there. They're not like they're a smart team, so they could still, I guess, decide to tank. But without trading Cousins, Cousins won't waive his no trade clause. All of that, I just don't think that they're going to tank the way that they probably would be benefited the most by having that high draft capital to move around with. Pickens looking good. Pickens better than Zay Flowers. I mean, obviously ADP difference is pretty big there. CeeDee Lamb, you got to feel pretty bad about the bye week, obviously knocking him down a little bit, but no games over 20 points yet. He is looking like the one first-round receiver that's really going to kill you on the year. So it's tough for CeeDee Lamb backers for sure. Not his fault, all that Dallas offense. Josh Downs being a top 26 guy, great best ball guy, absolutely. Probably get more reliable in terms of actual targets week to week as well. But all of that, I think, looking not too surprising. Devontae Smith, probably one of the biggest disappointments overall. This is bad. And the A.J. Brown stuff, like we talked about in the past few weeks, A.J. Brown demanded the ball, and now he's getting the ball, and it's working out. So it's just not going to change until a team can stop A.J. Brown. So if you're Devontae Smith backer, the bags are going to be looking pretty bad moving forward. Played 402 Vikes last night of the 10 I played. Saved me a little. Definitely too much. 4-2 Vikes. Yes. Playing more 5-1 Vikings. That was a lesson for me yesterday too, where so for showdowns, I've been trying to really play the players that I believe in the most because of the data, because of whatever things that I have going on in my head and trying to trust my instincts and stuff more. The best thing you can ever do in a showdown build though, or a showdown night, is just playing the inverse outcome. Like on a night like that one where everybody's like the Niners coming off this loss, they're going to rebound, they're going to get there. And all you had to do is play builds that said, hey, the Vikings might be competitive. So that's one takeaway that I'm going to try to internalize a little bit more. Last year too, I almost had a takedown in the showdown where it was the Bears Patriots slate. And I just played a bunch of Bears instead of going in with the favorites that were the Patriots in that one. I've had good results when I do that. And sometimes I don't do that. So that's something too, where you can believe with your heart that the Niners are going to crush and you should still play a lot of items playing that outcome. But also for a showdown, like you should really try to think about just what's a more obvious outcome or a more likely outcome that you could still play good players and you're not forcing in like Kyle Juszczyk to get the Niners side a low own. So that was a lesson for me yesterday, but we'll talk about that more come Thursday for sure. Picking just about anyone other than Andrews at the 2-3 turn seems bad and retro right now. Yeah. Yeah, I can't think of anybody that would disprove that point for now. I guess reaching for ATN maybe would have been the other option. But yeah, even that, I agree. Andrews looks like a solid play. He's one of my highest exposed tight ends, so I feel good about that. But definitely for Andrews, he's got a good role in an offense. It's getting better, getting improved by the week, which I think is a positive thing because as we talked about here, like Lamar was having struggles adjusting to this new Todd Monken offense. And now he doesn't seem like he's struggling with it. Now it took maybe a month of ramp up time to get there, plus the preseason. So for Lamar, I think he's rounding into form, and that's going to certainly bode well for Andrews and his shot to beat out Travis Kelce. Though if Travis Kelce keeps having Taylor Swift going to every game, he's apparently lighting it up every time she's there. So I'm going to say it, guys, power of the pussy. Power of the pussy on play for your tight end plays as well. So if next year in best ball, if you have any player that's like, this guy might be dating a pop star at some point, lock him in. That's pure lock button. All right, Travis Kelce, number one at tight end. No surprises there. He's the only one worth drafting. I still question the unit economics, let's say, of drafting Travis Kelce in the first round just because you're missing out on some opportunity with first-round receivers who could give you spike weeks later. But in terms of just putting distance between you and the field, Travis Kelce to me, like a no-brainer play in a season-long kind of thing, a drafter 17-week format where you're scoring and you're winning money off of that. That kind of play, playing for the regular season underdog, same thing. Travis Kelce, though, like, gonna help advance rates, absolutely. Gonna help those regular season teams come week 17. It's playing against Denver, so that could be certainly a nice matchup as well. But wait, that's right? Did I? It's still Denver, KC. I feel like the week 17 matchups have left my brain, which too much basketball information coming in, I guess. Put the pussy on a pedestal there. Hey, look, if it's going to get you top one tight end finishes, who am I to complain? Mark Andrews, number 2. Andrews, though, 30 points behind Travis Kelce almost. I guess we could say 20. Still, big distance between Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce, despite Andrews being good. So, but again, relative to draft capital, I think I'd rather have Andrews. Laporta still hanging in here at number 3, another mid game. But again, at tight end, just need guys that will give you 5 to 15. That is the ethos of the tight end position this year. And I feel that Laporta actually pulls ahead of Hockenson. So that's pretty interesting. So there we go. Hockenson at number 4, Laporta number 3, barely a little bit of distance there, but Laporta's probably due to have like a 0-point game at some point, but he's just a steady projection guy who gives you a couple 18-point spike weeks, and that might be enough to carry you through. Darren Waller, Dallas Goedert. Waller finally has a good game. Probably makes you feel better about it. I've contended that Darren Waller, the receivers, will have better games with Tyrod Taylor than Daniel Jones right now. I think that's still the case. But Darren Waller showing signs of life here. Maybe becomes a more important part of the game plan moving forward. That was a great matchup, though, against Washington. As I've mentioned on the stream, Washington quietly developing into one of the worst defenses in the league in terms of those EPA metrics. So for Darren Waller, don't expect him to get there like that every week, especially with Daniel Jones back in. Goddard 6, Kittle 7. Evan Ingram 8. Cole Kmet gets blanked. Tight ends normally a big part of the diet for a rookie QB coming in. They trust their safety blanket tight ends. That was not the case for Cole Kmet with Tyson Bagent, who just kind of gritted through that game. Tyson Bagent did nothing useful, but he got out there. He's got cool tattoos. His dad is a former arm wrestler, so he's got that. He doesn't create tight end points, but he does have some cool things in his life. And then, yeah, Jonnu LMAO, Jonnu Smith at number 11, ahead of Kyle Pitts once again, barely outside the top 10. Tight end's ugly, guys. Like, that's the name of the game here. Taysom Hill, top 15 now because of one good game. I don't know. Can't be surprised by it, I guess is all we could say at this point. And Michael Mayer coming along a little bit, but this week was another bad one for him. Back down to 2.3 points this week. Was still involved, though Austin Hooper got a little more work down the stretch. Michael Mayer, I think, live to climb up at some point. Just needs one good game to make a big jump upwards. But he and Luke Musgrave, I think right now, the bad side to Sam Laporta. Really, the difference between Musgrave in particular, the difference between Musgrave and Laporta is just having the occasional good game. And Musgrave does not have the occasional good game yet. So that's pretty tough for Musgrave in terms of the run out. Again, I really think Jordan Love's the one killing that. Maybe the play calling a little bit too, but just a tough scene overall. All right, now we take our lumps. So this is the part, guys, where I am going to quickly ask you to please like and subscribe down below. Before we review my underdog portfolio, which fucking down $5,000 right now. It's going to hurt me. So please subscribe down below. Splash Play in the March of 3K subs. I appreciate all you guys joining in here, getting some new members in the mix recently, which I am also glad to see. But Splash Play, all we do is talk fantasy football all year round here, Monday to Friday, 11 a.m. Ish. If I have something I have to do, but always around the 11 a.m. window. So check it out here. Ride with us, all that. Okay. So the thing that I like to look at, let's do that first. So my best team, once again, remains in the golden. My golden team here, it's 1,036 points. Would be finishing very well if we're in Best Ball Mania. Tua Tagovailoa, Derek Carr, finally putting some points in the mix. Saquon, Etienne, Brian Robinson, Elijah Mitchell with a 0. Mostert here. This team is solid. This team is live in the golden. Puka Nacua, this is what I was talking about, by the way. So Puka Nacua from my team has contributed 112 points. So Brandon Ayuk, who went, 4th, 5th round, contributing 56. Mike Evans, same thing, 73. Jahan Dotson, 10. Puka Nacua has contributed 10 times as many points to my team as Jahan Dotson has. So that is where Puka Nacua does become a very important player for a lot of teams out there. He is a player to me that probably one of the most valuable in terms of that advance rate help, as well as potential for a spike week, and as well as the fact that he's competing against 18 rounders for that are probably going to give people 0 points moving forward. So that is something for Puka that looks pretty good. All right, I haven't even looked this yet. Oh, okay, god damn it. We're down to $400. And again, this is, if you're not following here, I don't think this speaks to my lack of skill as a best ball drafter. I have 2 things that are really running heavily against me. AR being out for the year, Christian Watson giving me fucking nothing yet. Those 2 things are greatly killing my portfolio. Achane being out, not helping either. Jefferson being out, not helping either. The 1 year that I get substantially more than the field on the number 1 pick, that guy goes out for a month. So my teams are suffering right now. 400 entries means that we are, let's do the fucking math just so we can fully take my lumps here. I can look like an asshole because DraftKings and Drafters will make me look better. 400 divided by 25. I have 16 entries advancing right now at a 150. That would give me an 11% advance rate. That, shall we say, is not good. But a lot of third place teams still, so we can have that as solace. This isn't a lack of skill, just bad run. Thank you. Spags is our ride or die. The guy knows ball. I appreciate it. Spags, my best team is still the one from Spags Stacks and is in 302nd overall. Good. So Charlie will be cutting me a check for Spags Stacks when his team does well and mine does not. But here we go. Good news is that you still have time to flip this. I agree. Look, my type of teams, I've said, are meant to hit their windows a little bit later in the season, but I need to get them to the dance. So this is the part that I'm worried about. And this is the part last year where this time of year, like, I wasn't tracking as aggressively. We could see here, still have some first place teams, Spag Stacks teams again. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. So 25% of my advancing teams right now are Spag Stacks teams. We have the head-to-heads against Pete. 1, 2, 3. Give me one more from Pete. No, only 3 advancing for my head-to-heads with Pete out of the 16 that are advancing. These are pretty much all stream teams. I guess this one not, this one not. This one is actually one that we haven't talked about on stream before. So this stream I did with our good pal John Daigle over at 4 for 4. This team I loved when I drafted it, so I don't know how it's aged. Jalen Hurts, Daniel Jones, DeAndre Swift. It's a Philly alpha stack. DeAndre Swift, Zach Charbonnet, Elijah Mitchell, Roshan, Devin Singletary, Mostert. So Mostert helping out a lot. The 0RB part of this, the real 0RB part of it, not helping out too much. A.J. Brown carrying a lot. Devontae, Jerry Jeudy, Pittman. Ooh, Quentin Johnston. This is when Wandale was getting drafted. Oh, Hodgins, Slayton. The Giants part of it, not doing me a lot of favors. Goddard, okay. McBride, okay. Never mind. The Philly part of it looks good. I feel good about the Philly alpha, but there we go. And then the worst team that I could see here. Extreme 0RB team with Fields. Extreme 0RB with Fields and Russell Wilson. And we saw Russell Wilson as top 10, so can't blame him. A.J. Dillon, yikes. Zach Charbonnet, yikes. Tank Bigsby, yikes. Elijah Mitchell, just doesn't get better, does it? Jeff Wilson, Kendre Miller. Oh, no. Cooper Kupp, Amon-Ra, like that part of it. Christian Watson, dud. Keenan Allen got into this one too. So the receivers are the best part of the team by a wide margin, but holy shit, did we not do well? So this shows you the power of an extreme 0RB team where if I didn't draft Christian Watson and if I didn't draft Jerry Jeudy, this would be a pretty live team. But the running backs, holy shit. Like we talked about, if I had drafted Swift, if I had drafted Pacheco, if I had drafted those guys, Brian Robinson, that's a 0RB team that looks pretty good. But the miss on every 0RB choice, it really does come across pronouncedly. So that hurts. All right. Do we even have to look at the leaderboard? I can tell who's not the leaderboard. Chris Spags. Oh, shit. I'm on the leaderboard. I got one, guys. Top 10,000. We're hanging in there. I don't even know which one that is, but kudos to me. Kudos to me. The scared straight version of 0RB. Yeah. I guess that's it. All right, let's go to DraftKings. DraftKings is good. DraftKings, we are advancing. I forgot to do the math before the show. 15, 30, 89 divided by 5103. We're advancing 30 teams right now. I must have fucked up that math. Hold on. 1530.89 divided by 51.03. All right, fucking up something here. But we are advancing 20% of our lineups. So there we go. 20% is the advance rate on DraftKings. I am running like the sun on DraftKings. I have a ton of teams above 1K in points. That makes me feel pretty good. The irony, my highest scoring team is actually number 2 in this league, which is insane. So me and Las Chalupas safely about 200 points ahead of everybody else. This team, Lamar, I got a 0 at running back this week. I don't have enough running backs to field a team. Yet we are scoring over 1,139 points here. Lamar, A.J. Dillon, Tony Pollard, Mike Evans, Diggs, Pittman, Andrews, Jaden Reed in the flex, Dobbs getting here. So a Watson fade. That hurts a little bit. But yeah, look. So my running back options besides Tony Pollard were, in fact, J.K. Dobbins, Devon Achane, Kyron Williams. These were my running back choices who did not make the lineup. So feeling okay about being in second place and having this much points for a team that had no running back in week 7. We'll persevere. Spags colluded with Chalupa. No, I would never collude. Actually, I would collude with the Chalupa. I love a good Chalupa from Taco Bell. So no argues there. All right, this one's another first place. Again, just a lot of good teams on DraftKings, which I'll say it, guys. Look, I fucking love Underdog here. Here's the banner. I don't have one of these. I don't have one of these for DraftKings. Here, go. You play on Underdog. Use the promo code SPLASH. Double your deposit to $500. If you fucking see me win the Millie Maker on DraftKings, I don't think I have my. Do I have my DraftKings hat in the room? No, I don't have I don't even have the DraftKings hat in the room right now. I'm going to be wearing that DraftKings hat every day. I'm going to be talking about DraftKings going, hey, the best ball product on DraftKings. Oh, yeah, that kind of play would never fly on DraftKings. That's going to be me, guys, because we are actually crushing it on DraftKings. And these are teams that are built the exact same way as my Underdog teams as well, which kind of fucks with my head a little bit. But softer drafters on DraftKings, full point PPR gives you a little more bailouts. And I think I just got more Kyron and Achane on DraftKings. So I think those are literally the things that are different in my portfolio. Still have a lot of Jalen Warren, still have a lot of Alec Pierce, still have a lot of fucking shitheads, a lot of Christian Watson, guys that are doing nothing. So I will fully be the only one in the world that's going to tell you guys, draft on DraftKings for the love of God, just because you're going to give yourself a better shot to do something as well. Bonuses too. Good point by FF Doom. That is correct. Hoping to keep up. I have so many dead AR field teams. Field teams aren't dead yet, but yeah, the AR teams, you got to now carry AR with you, which I think is going to be the funniest part of my best ball portfolio is when I advance a team to the finalists and it has AR just coming along for the ride, contributing nothing, much like my finalists last year in BBM that brought along Trey Lance for the ride, contributing nothing. My worst team is going to be this one right here. Let's see. How low can we go? Oh, we're getting pretty low here. I have a lot of teams still in the 800s, 900s. Like, I might advance like 20 to 30% on DraftKings and it wouldn't shock me. I don't expect that to happen. But I did a count yesterday. I have like 15 to 20 third place teams as well. So I'm live on DraftKings. I feel like death on fucking Underdog, but I'm live on DraftKings. This team here, the worst one I had, still finished 5th this week with no Miles Sanders. So another one low on running backs. Tua, Jerome Ford. And by the way, this also speaks more volume at running back next year. Like, I'm going to be a 7 running back guy. It's just, I don't know how you don't get more running backs in the mix. Whether you are taking one early, whether you're not, just get that volume of running backs up more. Just give yourself a shot to not be the bad side of 0 RB like I am. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tyreek, Rashee Rice, Kincaid, Judy. Kincaid's role going to get a lot better, by the way, with Dawson Knox out. So Kincaid might be able to climb those tight end rankings pretty fast. Kincaid and Laporta, popular configuration for me. Devontae Smith adding nothing. Cooper, oof. And then just a bunch of dudes here who are hurt or inactive. This is a hilarious amount of guys who did nothing. 7 guys gave me a 0, and we finished 5th. So DraftKings best ball, unequivocally where it is at. We love DraftKings best ball here on Splash Play. Drafters. This one shocked me, guys. So Drafters, our friends over there, once again, I am now top 364, despite this week, no Achane, no Kyron Williams. I highlighted that the wrong way. Point being, though, I moved up the rankings. So Josh Allen, James Cook made the roster this week. Gus Edwards gave me 21 points on Drafters. Are you kidding me? I'll take that. Tyreek, Pittman, Jalen Hyatt gave me 9.5 points. Jalen Hyatt. Even Alec Pierce gave us some points this week. So we're live on Drafters. I can't be mad at Drafters. The longer that Juwan Johnson is out, by the way, Taysom's going to move some shit around. So feels pretty good there. But on Drafters, for me, being top 400 at this point, and then at some point, we are going to get back Kyron. We are going to get back H-Han. So I think I'm live on Drafters. I don't hate this. I only put in 7 teams because we started the Drafters process so late for me. But next year will be definitely heavier on Drafters. And I think really a tournament that does allow you a lot of upside. My worst Drafters team, I have to assume, is still Deshaun Chubb. Yeah, this one's got no shot to pop back to life here. Elijah Moore. Oof, I guess Elijah Moore did give me 10 points, so can't be too mad at that. And Taysom Hill once again. So this team probably donezo. Maybe you can get to the cash line. Probably not, though. This one, though, all right, we're hanging in. My 3rd team drafted on Drafters, hanging in. Number 1 overall on Drafters. We actually can see that here. A team with Jalen Hurts, so elite QB. ATN did go with 1 early. No, he went 2 early running backs. So Hurts. Actually, this guy's team, 2 early QBs, 2 early running backs, and Tyreek. So he did take a wide receiver first round. Boy, this wide receiver room. This is my hell. Be having a wide receiver room like this, but it is working out for this guy on Drafters. So shout out to Behave. Oh, funny. Behave. 2-2 made this guy's roster this week. Yikes. Does feel like you can get away with shittier receivers on Drafters, maybe. Maybe less of an extreme 0RB site, but that's something we'll figure out over the course of the rest of this year. Either way, I'm not mad at my Drafters outlay. I'm not mad about that one. At 50% Gus, it feels embarrassing even if it hits. I think the logic for Gus was always like, okay, you didn't get Dobbins on this team, but you have Miami guys, take Gus. So I think my Gus teams might actually end up, being an interesting team by the end of it because it's going to be attached to a lot of Miami. So I don't hate Gus for sure. Barbelling DK was good because no early Puka teams. I was taking them late. That's a fair point. Yeah, I didn't get a lot of Puka on DraftKings. I did get a lot more Kyron on DraftKings because of the full point PPR. But I think I got about the same amount of Puka. I think I was like 3 to 5% on both sites. So didn't get the 8% you might want to get to. Obviously, not everybody drafted him anyway. So having 3 to 5% Puka is good enough. But yeah, like on DraftKings, nobody took Puka at any point. Jalen Warren Dream is still alive. JSN season is here as well. That's true. Look, we have some outs. I think Quentin Johnson is a big one for me. Christian Watson is another big one for me. Those are guys I would like to see start to have some use at some point this year. For right now, though, I think the one that hurts me the most is Watson because I really felt like by this point he would have had a 30-point game, even one 30-point game from him. I would feel like my teams are getting the value out of it. Instead, it's like all my teams are bubbling up without Watson. So if he does have a good week at some point, if he can go off this knee, I'll feel a lot better about it, but there we go. 0% Puka here. I maxed super early. It's tough. Yeah, I think that's the biggest takeaway that I have from the season, I think, was just really, adapting more to late news, especially stuff like Kyron Williams, because I did adapt to it on DraftKings. I didn't adapt to it on Underdog, and I don't know why that's like the one thing I treated differently. But just having some of those late signals, having those August signals, I think are a very important part of it. And that's what, the ETR guys like Leone beat the drum of a lot, where the closer you draft towards the season starting, the more likely you are to have less zeros. I like drafting early. Next year on Splash Play, I'm committing right now. We will be doing 5 days a week of drafts, if not 7, but I think we're going to try to do 5, just do like 1 draft a day on some site every day of the year. And basically that's going to be my goal. I still think that's a plus EV approach. But you really need to take advantage of the time windows you have, where early in that draft cycle, you should be abusing rookies. You should be abusing guys that you think are going to go somewhere good in free agency or whatever. Later in the draft, you should be really adapting to every possible news item, every athletic article for guys that are a stable projection, not like a Deneric Prince type, but a guy like a Kyron Williams, where it's like, oh, he's got the 3rd down role locked down. Like that was a news item that was out there. And I didn't adapt to it on Underdog, did adapt to it on DraftKings. And that's like a big difference in my portfolio. And I did have Kyron here. Like he's in my best team. So just listening more late, but early, I think you still stack and you still can play or take a little bit more. I think that's the overall approach, but we'll find out next year. I got to take Kyron, 0 Puka 2. Look, we're a lot of smart people didn't take those guys. Like Pete, I know actively, we talked about it on one stream, and I think finally Tom Everett Scott got it, which is a funny sentence to say. Finally, Tom Everett Scott got Pete on the Puka, but I was saying I think Puka's a better play than Tutu, but I still wasn't drafting either that heavy. I think that's something where for 18th round of Flyers, I in particular need to be a little bit less horse blinders with 18th round of Flyers, because I was just like, Terrace Marshall, fucking smash. Other than when he was hurt, and then I didn't take him as much. Just take a spread of those guys in the 18th round, I think would be the more appropriate thing, but that's where it is. That's your best ball review show as we head into week 8, guys. Of course, Splash Play marches on here. We are continually on this quest to get 3K subs. So please subscribe down below, hit the like button. I know the best ball video. This is for you guys who've been with us throughout the entire offseason. So I don't expect to get anybody subscribing new here, but if you do, I can promise you're in good hands. I show my work here on stream every single day, and I prepare for the sport as hard as anybody out there. So please keep hanging out here with me Monday to Fridays at 11 a.m. Tomorrow will be the Spags rankings as well. So come back for that one. And of course, go check out Probably, the best bets in the world you can find for free. Again, we comb the top sports books in the world to find the true probability of every event in sports. And what that allows you to do is find mathematically profitable bets at your local sports book. And it's all for free. You just sort through like a needle in a haystack. We are going to launch the revenue product soon, so you can find the most profitable bet a lot easier. And that's working way better than I thought it would, thankfully. So that's coming out soon. Go check it out, probably.com. That is my baby. I am the person behind it. So you are buying the product from me if you go to probably.com. So check it out at probably.com. Follow me at Chris Spags. Follow the sport of Splash Play at Splash Play Pod. And of course, come back tomorrow for the Spags rankings. Appreciate all you guys being here as always. Thank you guys for being a friend. Thank you guys for being here and being part of the Squirt Squad. I appreciate each and every one of you. And I will see you guys again tomorrow. So enjoy your days. Play some NBA tonight. No Bradley Beal, no Devin Booker. Should be fun. It's a big tournament, so I'm going to be playing it. Hope you guys do too. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Enjoy your days. And of course, good luck. Bye.